Today is November 17th, 2022. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview of Frankie Martin in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
I was born in Shawnee, Oklahoma. December the 7th, 1936. Pearl Harbor Day, but I was, I think I was 5 or 6 years old.
Yes.
I don't remember.
Okay. Who is your father?
My father? My father was James Brady, B-R-A-D-Y, Martin. We called him Jim.
And your mother?
My mother was Hazel, H-A-Z-E-L, Lorraine, L-O-R-E-N-E, Martin. Her maiden name was Harper. Harper Martin, yeah.
Yes. Did you go through school in Shawnee?
Huh?
Did you go through school in Shawnee?
No, I was too young.
Okay.
I was born in Shawnee. As far as I know, we stayed in Shawnee until we were probably, I had one older brother, Paul, 18 months older. We probably stayed there for a while, and then I heard we moved to Sand Springs, where my uncle was mayor of Sand Springs, Stanley Martin. One of my uncles was a jeweler in Sand Springs forever. And Ollie, Stanley was over the Commander Mills during the war, that big place where they made all kind of stuff. And Ollie out there. I think that's where I was probably raised up until I was probably 8 years old. After that, Mom and Dad split up. And back in those days, for some reason, and the can't remember her name. Anyhow, me and Paul was taken away and put into the Tulsa Boys Home. And we were raised in the Tulsa Boys Home for about 12 or 13, 14 years until I got old enough that I left and went to Colorado and got a job before I went into service. This is my wife, Charlene.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How you doing?
What's your name?
Joe Todd.
Oh, okay.
They don't want to do no write-up on you at all.
I've had many write-ups.
No.
When you're an identical triplet, you get a few.
Oh, you're identical triplets.
Yes. Have you heard or seen any lately?
No, not lately. Where were you born?
Huh?
Where were you born?
Hominy, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Little town, Hominy.
Yes.
Let me tell you about Frank, but I got to tell this because we're identical, and the third one was already married. And just Shirley and I was left, and he kept calling me Shirley. And I said, well, I'm not Shirley. I'm Charlene. Oh, he says, right, honey?
Yep.
We've been married almost 64 years now.
64 years.
We were 23 when we were married, and
Yeah.
I'm 87, he's 86.
What was your-
I'm sorry, I'm 86 and he's 85.
What's your maiden name?
Hayes?
You were the Hayes triplets
Yeah.
in Shawnee and Hominy.
So,
Yes.
you know Tom Hayes down here in Dewey, the
Yeah.
mayor? It's my cousin,
Okay.
Tom is.
Okay.
But see, his spell, it goes way back, and we have a 100-year-old sister still living. So she thinks she's 100, but she's almost there. And when we were born, our grandfather was 100.
Where does she live, your sister?
Sybil lives here in Bartlesville with me. Shirley is in Florida. She'll be here today or tomorrow.
Okay.
For a visit for Thanksgiving. But we're from Hominy.
Okay. Well, we're gonna.
Hominy Bucks.
Okay.
I better get back because
Okay.
Frank has a very interesting career, let me tell you,
Okay. Well.
as you can see.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
hon. See
Okay.
you later.
Yep.
Good.
You want to do a write-up? Do you
But-
do write-ups on identical triplets?
Well, not yet.
That's how me and Paul ended up in a boys' home.
Yeah, yeah.
Dad, later on, there was more children, a lot more children. Dad had 7 boys by mom and 1 girl. And when he remarried, he was still pretty young, and he married a much younger woman, and he had 8 more children. So Dad fathered 16 babies.
Where was you said you at the Tulsa Boys Home?
Me and Paul and Don and Ben and Bill, eventually all 5 was raised more or less in the Tulsa Boys Home.
Tell me about the Boys Home.
Huh?
Tell me about the Boys Home.
Well, when Mom and Dad apparently broke up back in them days, the state kind of came in, and me and Paul went to the children's home for a while, about a year or 2, and then we were transferred to the Tulsa Boys Home. There was a gentleman that took in all the boys from. His name was Pop. We called him Pop Singleton, and he started out with probably. It's still in Tulsa somewhere. They've relocated. I think when I went in, there was probably, I don't know, maybe 30 boys, and when I ended up, there's probably a couple hundred. So it grew. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's a place in Tulsa where he was smart enough to buy the whole block up eventually with the help of oil men and wealthy people back in them days mm-hmm. to support the home. Mm-hmm. For the boys of clothing, food. It took a lot of money and a lot of time and patience. And I'm sure most of the oil men back in them days, Pop Singleton was smart enough to get involved with them to get help to manage the boys' home. And they bought up that whole block eventually and built 3 buildings, one for the little boys, one for an intermediate boys, and there was a building for the big boys.
Which one did you live in?
When I first went in, I was in the little boys. And then I went to the intermediate as I grew older. And when I finally left, I was in the bigger boys' dormitory.
What were they made of, the dormitories?
Huh?
What were those dormitories made of?
Oh, when I first went in, they had 3 buildings, dormitories, and they had what they called an airway from the places that you could go from one to the other. Well, over the years, he was smart enough when the money came in right, he built to the other end of the block, he built these 3 new buildings, beautiful brick buildings, mm-hmm. very modern, yes. Very nice. And after they were built and the boys went into them, they tore down the old ones and utilized that land down there for a baseball field, and I think we had rabbits and certain animals and extras. It was quite a very nice place.
Yes. What kind of work did you do there? Did you have to work at the boys' home?
Pop Singleton was a smart enough man that as a little boy you didn't do too much when you come home for school. You changed out of your school clothes and into your regular clothes. Sometimes you had such jobs as mowing the yard and taking care of things outside, the rabbits, or had a garden. Very smart man of teaching the boys things to do as they grew up. Mm-hmm. Even to the point of on Saturday and Sunday, everybody went to the church in buses, school buses, First Presbyterian Church in Tulsa. But he was also smart enough to, on a Sunday, you could leave the home and go downtown and go to the show. The little boys would get 15 cents. The intermediate boys would get like a quarter, and the big boys got like 50 cents. He kept a book with all the names. If you were doing good and do extra work, you could get some money and put into a little count deal, and you would be in the blue. Like he always was telling me, Frank, you got to get out of the red and get into the blue. And he was such a very smart man of raising the boys like they did. Each building, when boys had birthdays of that month, all those boys' name was on the cake. Each building. It was really, looking back, just a really fine place for young men to be raised.
Where'd you go to school?
Huh?
Where did you go to school?
Where did I go to school?
Yes.
When I first entered the home, got old enough, there was a school called Longfellow Elementary School. May still be in Tulsa, I don't know. Then there was a junior high called Horseman Junior High. And as you got into the high school, it was Central High downtown. I'm sure that school was there for a long time.
What year did you graduate?
I didn't. What I did was my mother came to get us one summer. She could check us out. And she took me and Paul to Denver, Colorado for the summertime. And when it was time for her to take us back to the home, she took Paul back, but I refused to go. I didn't want to go back. I was about 15 then. I was in, I think, the 8th or 9th grade. And apparently she took Paul back, and they didn't follow it. There was no complaints. I stayed in Colorado. And believe it or not, I was only like 15 or 16. I went to work for Armour and Company, packing plant. They thought I was older than I was. And I worked for them for about 2 years maybe, before Mom was coming back to Oklahoma, so I quit Armour and Company and came back and stayed with my dad a while until in 1954, and then in 1955 I went into the Army.
Okay. Where in Colorado did you live?
Denver, Colorado.
I'd like to ask.
Worked for Armour and Company back in 1952 and 53 and some of 54.
Do you remember World War II?
What I did?
No, do you remember World War II? The Second World War?
No, I was too young.
Okay.
I know my grandmother Martin and Grandpa Martin, my dad's mom and dad, lived in Sand Springs. And as I told you, their sons one was mayor and over Commander Mills all during World War II. Ollie and Ben Martin had the jewelry store, so they were well known in Sand Springs. But I was too young to, I did have two uncles, Herschel and Howell, that was in World War II, and both lost their lives on certain islands. I don't know where. I was too young, but Herschel and Howell died in World War II. My dad didn't go to the service because of too many children, and Ollie I didn't either, and Stanley was over Commander Mills.
Yeah.
But I don't remember Pearl Harbor because, again, like I was only 4 or 5 years old. I was too young back then.
When did you join the Army?
I joined the Army. Me and my younger brother, younger than me, Don Martin, wanted to, like I say, I quit the school when I was probably in the 8th or 9th grade. But when I went in the service, as I was in the service, I took GED and got my high school diploma in Dill. We went in service, me and Don, September the 14th, 1955.
Where'd you go for basic training?
We went to, we enlisted in Tulsa and did our first 8 weeks in Camp Chaffee, Arkansas.
Tell me about basic.
Camp Chaffee. After Camp Chaffee?
No, tell me about Camp Chaffee. What'd you do there?
Oh, well, we were just young kids. but we really wanted to be soldiers. I think I was probably, 18, Don 17. And when we got to Camp Chaffee, if you know Army, you do the first 8 weeks there. That first week is training, and second week, and as you do that in the infantry, learning all the weapons and everything about becoming soldiers, really. After 8 weeks, you've come a long ways to learn to be a soldier, and the rules of soldiers and marching and weapons. And after the 8 weeks, you come home for 2 weeks called a furlough before your orders send you to the second 8 weeks. We came home and stayed with Dad in Hominy, where Charlene was. I didn't even know her then. This was before I never knew she was even there. Came home and stayed with them a while before we left around Christmas time of 1956. It was in 1956. We went by bus, which was a long ways, to Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Now, was it 56 or 55?
Yeah. Well, we went in the service in 55 in September, so it was Christmas of 1955.
55.
We took bus and went to Fort Dix, New Jersey for the second 8 weeks of training.
What did you do in the second 8 weeks?
Second 8 weeks of training, we were still privates. You just learn more and more about the service. Weapons, artillery, living out in the field, doing exercises of all kinds. We did, while we were in Fort Dix, New Jersey, probably in January or February, probably January, me and Don had, on one weekend, we went into New York City. And we spent the weekend in New York City, stayed at a hotel. I remember we went to the Statue of Liberty and went up in that, and went up in the, trying to think of the big building in New York City.
Empire State Building.
The Empire State Building. Yes. And you go up to the top floors and come out onto a balcony, and they had a deal you could put a nickel or dime in, and you could look through these binocular deals they had, and you could see way out over the city. You could even look out as far as the Statue of Liberty. I remember that we were there a few days, and we got on the subway, got lost, young guys, and then after that we went back again after the weekend in Fort Dix and stayed there until the second 8 weeks were up. After the second 8 weeks were up, orders came down that we were through with basic training, first 8 weeks and second 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. Orders read that we were to be, because we went in under buddy system, we demanded that we wanted to do our time together as brothers unless it was combat. Mm-hmm. Orders came down that we were both to be sent to across the United States, Seattle, Washington, and we would ship out and go to Japan. We were due for the Far East, mm-hmm. and we did. We took an airplane and went across the United States. Remember, it was snowy and icy cold, and we arrived in Seattle, Washington. We were only there at a base for a few days. I don't remember too much. We were then with about 3,000 other soldiers. We went with the USS Mans, M-A-N-S, I think the ship was called. And we shipped out to Japan. We were on the water for 31 days.
Tell me about the trip.
Huh?
Tell me about that trip.
The trip? Lance, first time really we had ever seen the ocean, me and Don. First time we were ever on a ship this big. 3,000 men. Most of the time, if the weather was bad, we were locked down below. That first few days, there was so many guys seasick, it was unbelievable. It was something. And on good days, we could go up above and stay on the top decks and everything. And again, like I say, it was, we were on the water for 31 days. I remember we didn't see land for 31 days. Finally, after that time, we arrived in the...
Where did you sleep on the ship?
Huh?
Where did you sleep?
Oh, well, down below the ship was so big, they had quarters for showers and, of course, the mess halls, place for you to shave and clean up. The bunks were like 4 and 5. They were stacked because they wanted space. So your quarters were down below, which was kind of a confined down below, and it was kind of I didn't really like it too much being confined down so much. I can imagine guys being in submarines for months, and we were stayed on that ship down below in the bad weather and up above again, and for that 31 days.
How'd you pass the time on the trip?
Oh my! Well, up above playing cards, visiting with the other soldiers. You had on the ship they had game rooms, exercise rooms where you could do things, theater in the evening time. It was a monster of a ship. For 3,000 soldiers going over, it probably must have been at least probably 400 or 500 sailors that was on to do the deal, running the ship and everything. So the time was spent, had a lot of things to do.
Yeah. Where did the ship land? Where did the ship land? Where did you land in Japan?
Oh, in the port of Tokyo, the main port coming right into Tokyo. After that ship landed and we got off of the ship, everybody had duffel bags. You have duffel bag is what you keep all your clothes in and everything. We arrived. When we got off ship, somehow the orders got messed up, and they sent me up North Japan. It's most people don't realize Japan has north where it's colder and southern Japan. Well, Don went south and I went north. I was plenty upset about them splitting us up, but I couldn't do nothing right then, so I went on they took us by train, and we went north, probably about 1,500 of us soldiers. The other 1,500 went south, but we went north. Once I got to the base that we were going to, after a few days, I applied through a chaplain to let him know that they had split us up, and I wanted to either go back and be with my brother or him to be brought with me so we could finish doing our time together. And they had to do that, or either I told him I want to be out of the service. I signed up to be with Don, and I want to be with my brother. Mm-hmm. So in about 2 weeks, orders came down, and they sent me by train alone, and I went probably several hundreds of miles on the train to Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. No, I'm sorry.
Was it Camp Drake?
Huh?
Camp Drake?
No. It was way down south. Camp Otsu.
Camp?
Otsu. O-T-S-U. It was way down south, Camp Otsu. About way down south in Japan. Mm-hmm. Don was there, and so I checked in. They had regular barracks there, like oh, I don't know, maybe 200 men to each barrack. And that's where we stayed for, oh, I don't know, for probably the next 15 months, almost 2 years. In fact, we more artillery training, more rifle ranges in the field. Made PFC.
What unit were you assigned to? What unit were you assigned to?
We were the 7th Cavalry.
The 1st Cav Division?
No, 7th Cavalry. It was just, we were in the 7th Cavalry.
What division?
1st Division, I think.
Was it the 1st Cav Division?
1st Cav.
Okay.
7th Cavalry unit had the Pat 7th Cavalry. Me and Don, after about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months there at Camp O.C., we made PFC together. And then about 6, 7 months later, we made specialist, rank of specialist. And then all of a sudden, on the weekends you could check out from the base. While you were on the base, you had money that you could spend was military scrip. There was no green money, American money. You could take American money that was sent to you by mail if somebody wanted to send it to you, and you could cash it over into military scrip, but you were paid off every first of the month. You drew your month's salary down. Our salary at that given time was $96 a month. But $96 was a lot of money in Japan, a world of money. Japanese men, we used to see them, they'd go into work, have a little thing, and they carried a little, instead of a lunch box, it was kind of a metal deal of rice. They had a lot of rice and seafoods and stuff. But again, you could check out from the base and go down into what we call the village of Japan. And that was nothing of bars for American soldiers to go to and drink. Elvis Presley was breaking out big here in the States, but believe you me, his records were big in Japan. Hundreds of bars, one right after the other. That's the reason the American soldier had so much time and so many of them become alcoholic. Drinking. Drink the time. And then, not only the drinking, prostitution. Legal. I remember a bottle of beer was called Nippon, and it was 12% beer. Very strong beer. Wonderful beer, if you like beer. All the women in the world, again, women, I think at that time, were more or less sold into slavery in Japan. They had what they call mama-sans that may own as many as 50, 100 girls. These girls were used for nothing but legal prostitution. It was nothing for me to go in a bar and drink a while. And maybe I wanted to go stay with a Japanese girl during the daytime instead of it until later at night. But you could do that, and the cost was, I remember, around 50 cents to stay with the girl. And then later in the evening time, again, hundreds upon hundreds of American GIs that have left the base to come downtown could stay overnight downtown. You didn't have to be back to the base until Sunday evening to be ready Monday for duty. So they would stay Friday night and Saturday night if they wanted to in the village with the prostitution girls. And again, you could stay with them for a quarter 50 cents, or a pack of cigarettes. Cigarettes was very hard to come by for Japanese people. They loved the American cigarettes. I remember back, I didn't smoke, and out of the canteen, one week you could get 1 carton of cigarettes, the next week 2, the third week 1 again, and 4, so you could get 6 cartons of cigarettes a month. Most GIs smoked, and they would, they had their cigarettes, and again, when they went downtown, the Japanese girls loved to smoke the American cigarettes. In my case, the week I got 2 cartons, I would take them downtown and sell them. Where I bought them out of the canteen for like, oh my golly, a carton of cigarettes, maybe $5, maybe $4, $5. I'd take them downtown and sell them for maybe 20. Because Mama-san wanted them to give to the girls and pass out and everything. So, selling of American cigarettes and portable radios, soaps and stuff out of the PX into the village, because the Japanese just didn't have all that stuff at that time. Again, military scrip on the base. When you went downtown, before you went down into the village, you were supposed to take like $20, whatever, change some military scrip into Japanese yen. You were supposed to, when you were downtown in the village and buying things, don't use military scrip. Use Japanese yen. What you did, so you had military scrip, Japanese yen. But lots of GIs were sent from home. They would write, and the Americans, mom and dad or whoever, may send a soldier, let's say, $20, $30 in American green money. Now, you were supposed to take that green money and change it on the base into military scrip. And you could use it also for yen. But never, never was you supposed to take American money into the village. Because, one reason, but they did. Millions and millions and millions of dollars of American money, green money, was taken into the village. Mama-san would take American $20 bill and she would probably give you $30 of Japanese yen, which you could spend on prostitution, drink, and everything. That is how, though, the Japanese, I'm sure, over the years, it would be hard for me to even imagine, looking back, how much green money into the hands of the Mama-sans and Papas illegally.
Yes.
That money was used for many things, probably. Getting into the United, I don't know why. But they would leave the base and go stay with their prostitution lady they were living with. My brother Don stayed with a girl, and every evening he would go and live with her. And in the morning he'd be back on base for duty. Mm-hmm. So it was prostitution, alcohol, drugs. Drugs was legal. Mm-hmm. Not legal, I'm sorry. But a lot, GIs did it, they had what they called opium houses, where you could, I never got involved in drugs, I didn't smoke, wasn't involved in it at all. But hundreds upon hundreds of American soldiers, young men, would go in these opium houses and smoke these drugs. which so many American soldiers got strung out on drugs because of being overseas and to foreign lands. And that's what happened, I'm sure, in Vietnam later on, in some of these places where American soldiers really, health-wise, got messed up. But anyhow, after about 18, almost 2 years in Japan, orders came down for some reason, and our division was to be sent immediately by ship to Korea. We were loaded up by bus, taken to trains, taken back to the port in Tokyo, and shipped out for Korea. I forgot how long it took. It took several days, ship times, from Japan to where we arrived into the port and went into Korea. And we arrived in Korea in 57, I think. And we stayed in Korea. Again, we got split up, me and Don. I stayed farther back from the main military line. The DMZ was the front line up close to North Korea, which is still there. That's where Don went. And I went to, can't remember, a small village deal with a big base farther back in North Korea. I decided after I had made specialist, I was capable of my rank. I quit military infantry training and went into the military police, security police. I was at the main front post gate, always guarding the front gates of everything that came in and out.
Where?
Man, I don't remember.
Yeah. Was it up by the DMZ?
A lot of camps?
No, were you south of the DMZ?
Oh yes, I was back farther. Don was up on the front DMZ. He was in a position that if the North Korea ever came over, there was from the North Korean soldiers to the American soldiers, there was about a mile or so, it still is, no man's land. Mm-hmm. Don was on the front line up there for a long time. He would come back sometime on the weekend. It was probably from where I was and he was probably, I'm going to say 15, 20 miles, mm-hmm. which is quite a distance, when if you're on foot. But he was Jeep, and he'd come back sometime on the weekend and visit me. I never went up there. Mm-hmm. I didn't care to go up there. And, but I didn't apply to, and he spent the rest of his, probably the next 6, 7, 8 months there, and I stayed back 20 miles on this base of being military police. Mm-hmm. Until after we were there about 9 or 10 months, orders came down, finally, after we'd been in the Far East for about 30 months, 28, we were going back home. Mm-hmm. Finally.
Were you close to Seoul, South Korea?
Huh?
Were you close to Seoul, South Korea?
Seoul?
Yeah.
Yeah. Seoul, DMZ was way out where I was. From me back to Seoul was probably about 50 miles.
Okay.
I never did get into Seoul too much. Only when we first docked and came through.
Okay.
Loaded on deuce and a half, taking us to our bases.
Yeah.
But when when orders came down, we were taken by deuce and a half to the train station, which took us back to Seoul. After we got to Seoul, probably, I don't know, maybe 1,000 soldiers coming back home. Mm-hmm. We got on the ship, another big one, to come back to the United States by ship.
You recall the name?
We took the man's going over in the Freeman, USS Freeman, going back home. And again, we were on this ship for 30-something days. And I remember in the evening time, the ocean, when the sun set, it looked like it was just going down into the water. And you got to remember the demilitarized zone. After so long, it was like on a Wednesday, when we crossed that, it was 24 hours the other way. In other words, right now in Japan, we're Thursday here. They're Friday. They're 24 hours ahead of us. Whatever time it is now, it's that time at nighttime, they're all asleep in Japan. When the sun comes different, we're getting up here. We'll be getting up in the morning Friday, and they'll be going to bed Saturday. 24 hours difference. When the ship came into the port in California, San Francisco, I think, somewhere in there, I remember the ship going by. It was kind of at a distance. We could see Alcatraz. We came under the Golden Gate Bridge, and we could see the island, the prison of Alcatraz. We sailed by it. We came into the port and got off, and all these 1,000 or so soldiers or more. And we were there at a base, I can't remember where, for 2 or 3 days, until we were all got our orders. We were going to go home for 2 weeks leave. Again, we'd been overseas all that time. We were paid our pay, and we checked out me and Don. Why we didn't take a plane, I'll never know. We took by train, and probably price-wise, and we took by train from California back into Tulsa, Oklahoma. Took several days on the train to get to Tulsa. And when we did, the train trip was kind of boring. You're on that train all day traveling and through the towns coming all the way back. But once we got to Tulsa and we checked out, we both went and was picked up by our dad. And we went to Hominy, Oklahoma, back to this town where Shirley was again. And we stayed there for the 2 weeks. Mom was, I don't know where, I forgot. She was remarried, and so was Dad with Eileen. And we stayed there 2 weeks until our final orders was we would go. We had about 2 months to do, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. We went to Fort Carson, Colorado. Fort Carson, Colorado. And by bus. And we spent our last couple months there before we mustered out. And Don bought a car and we mustered out September the 14th, 1955 from Fort Carson, Colorado.
1955?
No, I'm sorry, 1958.
1958.
3 years to the day. Went into 14th of 55, 14th of 58. Right to the date. We got back to Hominy. We drove to Hominy. And we stayed with Dad a while. That's where I met my future wife-to-be, which I learned she was a triplet, and met her family and met them. And I stayed working with my dad in the sign business there for a while until Valentine's Day, February the 14th of 59, me and Charlene got married in Hominy. And after we got married in Hominy, we moved to Tulsa. And once we moved to Tulsa, she was a housewife, and I worked for Wonder Bread Commander Mills in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think it may still be. It was out on 11th Street. I worked there for 2 or 3 years. And in Tulsa, we had our 2 first babies there. Kathy was the first one born, and then 18 months later, Shelley was born. We stayed in Tulsa for, I don't know, 6, 7 years. Finally, we moved to Houston, and we went to Houston. Ended up staying down there 28 years. I went into my dad had learned me the sign business, and that's what I did. I opened a small little sign deal and got bigger down there and bought me 2 crane trucks later on. Had several guys, about 4 or 5 working for me under Frank Sign Service, and was in Houston for Sugarland area for 28 years. After 28 years, every summer we were coming back to Oklahoma to visit Charlene's parents and do things. Winter time of 1997, we came to Bartlesville to visit one of her sisters, and this piece of property was up for sale, Tex Tannehill and Lee Tannehill. It's 4-point-something acres, commercial property. It was up for sale. I think we bought it for $130,000. And we bought the property in December of 1997. Went back to Houston and moved all of our stuff and came back here. And we've been here for about 28 years. I don't want no water. 28 years.
Oh, thank you.
You don't want any water?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
So that's how we came to Bartlesville.
Yeah. Been here ever since.
Huh?
Been here ever since.
Yeah, ever since, 28 years. Our older daughter, Kathy, both girls, of course, went with us to Houston. Both girls married in Houston. Kathy married Mike Odom, and Shelley married Greg Markowitz. After we were there in Houston a long time, Kathy with Mike had 2 children, grandchildren, Tasha and Sean. Shelley never had no children, but in 1985, we had a bad thing in the family where our oldest daughter, Kathy, was murdered in Spring, Texas, during the daytime, around 1 o'clock. Tasha granddaughter was 4 years old in the house, and Sean was only about a few weeks, 8 weeks old.
It took 17 years to find out who did it.
It took a long time after the murder. Mike took the children away, and we had a hard time getting to see the children, and we had grandparents right, and we went to court, got all that done. Mike remarried, and Shelley, again, was still married to Greg Markowitz. After many years, as Charlene was telling you, DNA was kind of new in 85.
You remember Kathy's was the first cold case that they had in Houston. She was the first case.
Well, DNA was kind of new in 85. Mike moved out of the nice home after Kathy was murdered and remarried, and of course the house sold. But over the years, I never gave up on the investigation. I worked with Detective Harry Ficaris was on the case for many years. I always, in my mind, thought it could have been anybody at the time that did the murder. Why? I couldn't figure why. And at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Tasha was beat unconscious, which she was able to survive. They didn't mess with Sean. But after 4 or 5, 6 years, was it, maybe? Harry Ficaris, the lead detective, was smart enough to go back. The case had been turned over at this time to what they call cold case. When Kathy was murdered, the murderer had cut a cord off of the lamp and tied her hands together. I didn't know all this at the time, but that cord that was around her hands laid in a paper bag with the evidence for all these years, which was great because it was not in plastic. Or they told me it would have deteriorated the DNA. Well, after all these years, that they checked the extension cord, which they never had. Kathy's motive of death was rape because she was raped, and then she was stabbed to death and her throat was cut. All these things, very violent. The DNA on the extension cord, they extracted some blood that had somehow got onto it. Apparently, when the person that cut it may have nicked himself and left some of his traces of DNA on the cord, which was wonderful that we had that. And after we got that and they checked that, the DNA from the extension cord matched
Greg.
the other son-in-law married to Shelley. All this time, he worked with me, for me, stayed close to me. The day of the funeral, put his hands around me and hugged me at the casket. All this time, I didn't know. But the DNA with the semen pinpointed him as the murderer. He was very wealthy family, millionaires.
He always flirted with Kathy and pushed around on her and all, but
Shelley worked for an oil company downtown, but he lived with his aunt and uncle in a big, beautiful home in Houston. And that's where they lived upstairs. Well, after we had moved back here, when Harry Ficaris had called me on the phone one day and told me, Frank, we are about to go to Greg Markowitz's home and arrest him for the capital murder of your daughter Kathy. And I told Harry, I said, well, Harry, I said, after all this time, maybe 13, 14, after all this time, how in the world did you catch him? He said, well, we caught him with the DNA, and he explained the extension cord and everything to me. He said, and it's him, and we're about to go get him. I said, I wish I was there with you, to go with you. He said, well, I'll tend to it for you. So apparently they went to the big mansion house, and as I heard Greg wasn't there, and Harry later, when he called me, they had backed off and waited for him to come home. He was getting groceries, and when he drove up into it, they came in both ways and read his rights to him, that he was being arrested for the capital murder of Catherine Louise Odom. And they did that. And
how many years
he asked could he call Shelley downtown Harry Ficaris said no, he would call his wife, which he did. Harry called me that evening. And he told me, he said, Frank, we have gone and made the arrest of Greg Markowitz. There will be no bond. He will be held until trial. I do want to let you know that he made one statement about you. After we handcuffed him and was putting him in the cruiser, his words was, that damn Frank Martin would just never give up, would he? With the, without a doubt, without the letters, pushing, cussing the detectives, we were able to solve the case. Or it would have got into cold case and it would have never been solved. Yes. Simply, he would have got away with it. Mm-hmm. Later on, he was tried for the capital murder. I wanted death sentence for sure, but we didn't get that. He pleaded guilty, never apologized to us, no way informed. Received 48 years in the state penitentiary. Did 4 years, as I hear, and died in the penitentiary. Mm-hmm. And he's buried in the same cemetery, mm-hmm. Forest Park, in Houston, where our daughter Kathy is also laid to rest. Shelley eventually quit the oil company, moved up here to Bartlesville, where she still is and works. And we see her constantly because she lives here now. And Tasha, the little granddaughter, now lives in Bartlesville. She wanted to come up here, and we had her a while. She worked 18 years or so for Chili's. She is now involved in church work and a foster parent, taking care of foster children, and she's remarried. Sean, the little grandson that was only 8 weeks in Houston, still lives in Houston and is working down there. Tasha has moved here and married and had a great-grandson for us. His name is Dallas, and he's 8 or 9 years old, and he goes to school here in Bartlesville. Mm-hmm. Me and Charlene's been married coming up 65 years.
64.
64 years. And we still live here as a property.
Did you want him? I want to insert one thing. By being an identical triplet, they both married men named Tom. I don't want that recorded.
Okay.
Both
Don,
married Tom.
the brother I was in the service with, mm-hmm. came home, got married to Margaret. They had 2 sons and a daughter. They lived in...
I was telling him about...
They lived... Where did Don live?
Who?
Don.
They live there in Houston. Huh? Donnie? Odom?
Donnie. Where did Don and Margaret live?
Catoosa.
Catoosa.
Huh?
Wasn't it Catoosa?
No, not Catoosa.
Well, what is that place over there where Hard Rock Cafe is?
Anyhow, Don's passed away now. So is my older brother. All 4 of my brothers have passed away. They were all military. Paul is with the older brother. He's laid to rest in Sand Springs. And Don is buried in Sand Springs by Paul. Ben is buried here in close to Tulsa. And Bill was naval. He's buried at Fort Gibson. And that's...
I was getting ready to tell him about me and I did triplet. We shared everything. We shared the womb together. We studied, and we always missed the same questions on the test.
Yeah.
They both married a man named Tom. I said I couldn't marry a man named Tom. That has to be, and I didn't. But we shared everything but our husbands. Yeah. But now get this one. Both of my sisters have lost their husbands. We're down to one man, one husband, and I have to share him with my sisters.
All of my family now have passed away.
Yeah.
I'm the last
Yeah,
one
Frank doesn't have a
of my
family.
family.
Would you join the Army again?
Would I join again?
Yes.
If they needed me, in a minute.
I would like to ask, when you were there in Korea, were you always on the gate guarding?
Don was on the DMZ.
But you were on the gate.
I was on a military post as security police.
Okay.
More or less front guard of the compound at that place there.
Okay.
For to work in the kitchen and do different chores. But that's how I become to know the Tulsa Boys Home and was there for many, many years. Pop Singleton was, I know he's passed away long ago, but was father to hundreds and hundreds of boys.
What was the name of the home you first went to? The one you ran away from?
Tulsa's children's home, I don't know.
Was it in Sand Springs or Tulsa?
In Tulsa.
Tulsa. Okay.
Not in Sand Spring, Tulsa.
Okay.
Because when we ran away, Grandma and Grandpa Harper lived out on Sand Springs line.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in the boys' home you could check out on a weekend, and a lot of times I would go from the boys' home to the old trolley car, if you ever knew in Tulsa. Mm-hmm. And I would catch the trolley car for a nickel, and as you went back all the way to Sand Springs, there was stations, Bruner, and you could get off. I remember Bruner because that was where I would get off and go visit Grandma and Grandpa Harper, my grandma and grandpa, mother of my mom. If I would stay on the trolley car and go all the way to Sand Springs,
Oh, yeah.
I would go visit Grandma and Grandpa Martin sometime, my dad's mom and dad. They had a nice home in Sand Springs, and I do remember you could, for a nickel, you could go to Sand Springs and you could get a transfer. So after the day, and when I come back, I could give the transfer to the trolley driver and get back to Tulsa. And then when I got off the trolley car from the station downtown to the boys' home was about 5 or 6 miles. Of course, I walked.
Yeah.
Everybody walked, and then unless you had a bicycle.
Yeah.
And I did that many, many times, the old trolley car.
Yeah. Tell me about the first Cav.
The cavalry?
Yes.
In Japan. It was a fine unit. Got a lot of fine training of mortars, all day long on the firing line, camping out in the again training of all kind of military training, even to the point of we once about 1,000 GIs took training, and we actually went by ship and went to the island of Iwo Jima. We actually took a maneuver and went by ship, went off the rope deals down into the carriers, and went on to Iwo Jima and took it like the Marines took it. And I'll never forget coming down into that deal that took me onto the island. When the door come down and I got out, the island is 1.5 miles across, 6 miles long only. On the right end is Mount Siabachi. It was so strange to see what this island, later on I hear so many 14 or 15,000 American Marines died. But the reason why the Japanese were so implanted in the island for 20 and 30 years underground. But the Americans wanted that airstrip so they could bomb Japan. They thought the taking of Iwo Jima would be easy. No way. From the time you hit the island, you were in soft volcanic ash with all this equipment. I can imagine how easy it was, how difficult it was for me, how it must have been for the American Marine, laden down with all this volcanic ash, the barbed wires, the Japanese encased, riddling them with machine guns. As I read one time, the first few hours that the Marines hit Iwo Jima, almost 8,000 Marines died. It took 2 weeks to take Iwo Jima. Even after 2 weeks, there were still Japanese years later found that they had hid in the caves. That Mount Seibachi is where the Marines put up the famous flag. If I can remember right, there was 14 to 15,000 American Marines died on Iwo Jima, and 38,000 Japanese soldiers died in a 2-week span to take the airstrip that was needed. They were so encased, they bombed it and everything, but they didn't realize how encased the Japanese were and how long it was going to take. Something that was supposed to be easy,
Yes.
cost almost 45,000 lives
Yes.
of both sides to take that crazy island.
Sir, this is an excellent interview.
Huh?
This is an excellent interview.
Oh,
I want to thank you for your service and thank
well,
you for the
I
interview.
sure do. I appreciate you coming out. I'm still a 100% DAV veteran. Go to Tulsa every now and then. Miss all my brothers, servicemen. VA's been real good to me.
For sure.
And we really have enjoyed the 28 year here in Bartlesville and
Yes.
living on this piece of property. We intend to, before long, sell and live our final days here in Bartlesville.
Okay. But again, this is November 17th, 2022. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Frankie Martin in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Thank you.